Welcome to Supernormal M. I haven't been allowed to post for quite some time now, but I think I'm allowed to again, ? Let's test it. When I was a kid, I dreamed I helped seal away something evil. 20 years later, I dreamed the sequel. When I was a kid, I had a dream that didn't feel like a dream. It felt like an assignment, and in the dream I left my body. Not physically, more like I unfolded out of it. I was taken by something that wasn't human. They weren't hostile, they were purposeful, calm, and ancient. They told me I had to travel with them. There's an obelisk somewhere beyond our reality. Not in space exactly, but in another plane layered over this one. It was a lock, and it was failing. An evil race had sealed away there. The obelisk needed to be recharged every 20 years. Not by machines, but by a person, a child. They said I had the right frequency. Something about childhood made it possible. Something that fades when you grow older. A childhood magical frequency. I wasn't alone. There was an adult there, the one who had done it 20 years before me, and he guided me. He didn't explain much, he didn't have to. He understood exactly how I felt because he had been me once. We traveled across impossible places, through stars and through structures that felt alive, through spaces that didn't follow rules that I understood. Eventually we reached it. The obelisk had stood there waiting, and I touched it. At the moment I did, I'm filled with something I've never experienced before or since then. Absolute bliss. Not happiness, not excitement, but something deeper. Something pure. It flowed through me and out of me and into the obelisk. I knew without being told that it was working, that it was sealed again, that everything was safe. When it was over, they told me that in 20 years I'd return, that I would guide the next child the way I had been guided. Then I woke up, but that feeling didn't leave. For weeks afterwards, whenever I remembered the dream, I could still feel traces of that bliss, like an echo of something real. I believed it had happened completely. I couldn't wait for 20 years to pass. But life happened, and I eventually forgot. 20 years later, I had another dream. They came back, and this time I understood immediately. I remembered everything, the obelisk, the journey, the feeling. I knew why they were there, and it was my turn to guide. There was a kid with me now, same age I had been. He was overwhelmed and confused, but chosen. We traveled the same paths I remembered, same impossible spaces, but something was different, though. I didn't feel the magic anymore, and I could tell he did. I could see it in him. The awe and the energy and the magic. But for me, it was quiet, distant, like revisiting a place that had once been alive, but had somehow gone still. We reached the obelisk. He touched it, and I saw it happen again. The bliss moving through him the way it had moved through me, and it worked and the seal held. He was told that in 20 years he would guide the next one, and I was told that my role was finished, that I wouldn't be contacted again, and I woke up and I felt empty. I cried. Not because something bad had happened, because something had ended, and I remembered being a kid, waiting for 20 years to pass so I could return, waiting to feel that magic again. And I had returned, but it wasn't mine anymore. Now I don't know what it was. Just a dream, or my subconscious remembering something I'd forgotten, or maybe something else entirely. My experience as a 9 to 10-year-old child. When I was 9 to 10 years old, I lived in a house on a quiet road. At the time, I didn't know about it, but a child had died in the house I had lived in. I found this out after I'd done some research after moving house. My experience in this house before the incident was fine. Nothing was happening, no noises or anything like that. But my sister had experienced noises on the ceiling in her room. Even said that one night she saw a white wisp seem to fly up the stairs and into my parents' room. Even scarier than that, my mother had said that she would hear a quote-unquote child shout, "Mommy," sometimes in the night. She always thought it was me or my brother who slept in the same room as me. Now, what happened to me actually made me believe in ghosts. I had woken up and I didn't know the time since I was young, and I didn't own a phone. But anyways, after waking up, I would turn and face the wall, which my bed was propped up against. Down the side of my bed would stand a transparent, but also white figure. I never communicated with it, but I ran out of the room as soon as I saw it. It's entirely possible, I guess, I was imagining it. I had just woken up, but the fact my sister and mother had seen and heard things before leads me to believe that this isn't the case. After I'd seen the figure, I never saw or heard anything ever again. In that house, anyway. The Ghost Wife, unveiling the legend of Nang Nak, Thailand. Do you believe in ghosts? In Thailand, the legend of Nang Nak is one of the most well-known and chilling ghost stories. It's been passed down through generations. It's a tale of undying love, tragic death, and vengeful spirits that continue to haunt the country's cultural landscape to this day. The tragic story of Nang Nak. The story of Nang Nak takes place during the reign of King Rama IV in the 19th century. It's in the village of Phra Kanong, just outside of Bangkok. Nang Nak was a beautiful young woman, deeply in love with her husband, Mak. The couple lived a simple, happy life, but their world was torn apart. Mak was drafted into the military. While he was away, Nang Nak became pregnant, eagerly awaiting his return. However, fate was cruel. During a difficult childbirth, Nang Nak died, and with her, her unborn child. But Nang Nak's spirit did not rest. Despite her death, she could not bear to leave her husband. She lingered by the doorstep of their home, waiting for Mak's return, unaware that she was no longer of this world. When Mak finally returned from the battlefield, he was oblivious to his wife's death. The villagers, aware of the truth, they were too afraid to tell him about her passing. Fearing the wrath of Nang Nak's ghost, they feared her powerful spirit, which had already begun to exact vengeance on those who dared to speak of the truth. Nang Nak's anger only grew stronger as she discovered that people knew her fate and yet kept it hidden from her husband. She began to kill anyone who spoke about her death, her vengeance spreading far and wide. But Mak, still unaware of his wife's transformation into a vengeful spirit, continued to live in a blissful sort of ignorance. The monk who helped. Eventually, the truth came to light, and in his grief and confusion, Mak sought help from a wise monk named Samdej To. Samdej To was a revered figure in Thai Buddhism. He's known for his compassion and deep spiritual knowledge. He was believed to have the power to help restless spirits find peace. With the monk's guidance, Mak confronted his wife's spirit. It was to perform a ceremony to help Nang Nak's soul find peace and rest. The vengeful ghost, now understanding that her husband knew the truth, was now able to let go of her anger and finally find peace. In the end, Nang Nak promised Mac that they would meet again in the next life. Nang Nak's cultural legacy. The story of Nang Nak is not just a ghost story. It's a reflection of the deep cultural values of Thai society. Nang Nak represents the power of love, but also the dangers of unresolved emotions and the vengeance that can arise from them. You're not kidding. Her tale emphasizes the strength of a woman's devotion and the tragedy of unfulfilled love. In Thai culture, there's a deeply ingrained respect for the family unit, and the story of Nang Nak highlights the complex relationship between love, loss, and the supernatural. Nang Nak's story has also become a symbol of loyalty, the unbreakable bond made between husband and wife, even beyond death. The Ghost Wife Temple and the Amulets. In modern Thailand, Nang Nak's legacy lives on in the form of the Ghost Wife Temple, Nang Nak's Temple. It's located in Bangkok. The temple draws thousands of worshippers who seek her blessings, asking for love or prosperity and family harmony. People believe that by praying to Nang Nak, they can ensure loyalty in their relationships and protect their marriages from infidelity and outside interference. The temple is filled with offerings of incense and gold leaf and other ritual items, you could say. In addition to the temple, Nang Nak's amulets have become powerful talismans, and these amulets are believed to have the power to bind the heart, ensuing loyalty and stability in relationships. Thai monks bless these amulets, which are considered sacred objects of protection. Modern encounters with Nang Nak's spirit. As the legend continues to be passed down, many people still claim to experience strange and unexplainable events linked to Nang Nak's spirit. On social media and internet forums, people have shared their own encounters with the ghostly wife. Some report feeling strange energy around the temple, while others describe hearing faint cries or seeing the ghostly figure of a woman in traditional Thai dress. One common experience shared by many visitors of the temple is the sense of heavy presence, as if someone's watching them, even though no one is visible, of course. Some have even reported hearing footsteps behind them or experiencing vivid nightmares where they encountered Nang Nak's spirit. Though these stories can't be verified, they add to the mystique and fear surrounding her legend. Nang Nak and pop culture, well, their story's been adapted into various forms in media, including television shows and films and books. The most famous adaptation was, that's a weird way to say adaptation, It's in the 1999 Thai film Nang Nak, which tells the story of her undying love and vengeful spirit. The film explores her emotions, adding depth and complexity to her character and highlighting the tragic nature of her existence as a ghost. The film, along with other adaptations, have cemented Nang Nak as one of Thailand's most iconic ghost stories. Her image, it's often used in Thai horror, showcasing the conflict between love, betrayal, and the supernatural. Conclusion, albeit AIE, well, the legend of Nang Nak is a powerful and haunting tale. It reflects the deep emotional and cultural values of Thailand. It's a story of love that transcends death and the dark consequences of unresolved grief and vengeance. Whether you believe in ghosts or not, the story of Nang Nak remains an integral part of Thai folklore, one that continues to captivate and terrify those who hear it. I've just completely mosquito bombed my room, so if I sound like I'm a little bit dying, it's because the air is mostly made of pyrethrin. From a marked child to a seeing guardian, my journey with the master numbered 22. It all started my childhood, and in our house, the paranormal wasn't a taboo. My parents used to sit at the table with a self-proclaimed witch, practicing table turning. For them, it was an experiment. For me, it opened a portal that left me completely defenseless. I still vividly remember a night of sleep paralysis. A red entity stood before me, marking my stomach with a red pen. The eerie, whipping hiss of its snake-like hair is a sound I can still hear today. From that moment on, I was wide open, and during my youth I searched desperately for answers. I developed a sudden crystal clear, quote-unquote, knowing in an instant, like I just know if something invisible is in the room. I can see people's auras, and I feel the icy chill at the cemetery of the nameless. Especially in the middle of the scorching cemetery. Whoa, whoa, whoa. Cemetery of the nameless. Ominous. So, for a long time, this knowledge was a heavy burden, weighing physically on the back of my neck. The turning point came through numerology. I discovered the number 22, the master number of the builder. I realized that I carried the energy to turn visions into reality, but without protection, my own foundation would never be stable. While the 1984 tattooed on my arm was my symbol, the 22 was my mandate to bring order to my energetic chaos. After I first saw my parents passing in prophetic dreams, pressure became almost unbearable. I had to close the circle. I began confronting my roots and the archetype of Lilith. In her image, the unyielding one with the hair of snakes, I recognized the hissing from my childhood. This time, I didn't feel fear, I felt a connection. I made the biggest decision of my life. I had her seal, the bleeding eye, tattooed on my neck, exactly where foreign energies used to seep in. Today, I live in what I call an abnormal looseness. My protection runs on autopilot. The eye on my neck sees the truth. I'm firmly anchored, and I no longer am a victim to any of my gifts. I'm a guardian, standing in the full power of my 22. Does anyone else here experience this, that sudden knowing, where the moment of burden finally transforms into your greatest strength? Couldn't say. About my haunted house. Hey there. My house is known to be haunted, and people don't like staying over. I'd give some of our encounters, and I'll see what you guys think. Starting off, I'm the youngest of a family of 5. Me and my mom have experienced the most, by the way. And I've had many different encounters that have scared me to death. Some I don't like talking about in person since my mom claims bringing attention to it makes it worse. Whenever's in our house, it likes to torment us when we're completely alone and vulnerable. I'll tell my mom's most used story first. When she was finishing college about 2 years ago, she wasn't working, so she'd stay home and do her schoolwork. She always did her work in the office, so she had plenty of papers and craziness all over her desk. Well, one day she went out to the kitchen to get some food, and when she came back to the office, there were all of her papers floating. She only saw them for a split second, When she fully registered what just happened, they were already on the floor. These papers weren't on the edge, so there's no way they'd fall off on their own. Another big story she tells me in the shadow is she claims this thing is still around at this time, and she's able to see a shadow almost follow her around the house while she was alone. My sisters have also had many encounters as well. My oldest sister once had a dream where she had to perform an exorcism. When she woke up, there were 3 long scratches along her back. No way she could have done that in her sleep. They weren't there when she went to bed either. My second sister was once playing in a room alone, and it's in the basement. She feels something hit her in the head. She felt around and found one of her toys, a squinky. What in the world is a squinky? A squinky stuck in her hair. She was home alone and didn't lean back or anything. So there was no way she could have done that by herself. Alrighty then. I've had many encounters, but I'll only share 2 here. My first one happened just a few nights ago, last Thursday. I was alone in my room, and also in the basement. My sister and I have connecting rooms separated by a curtain, by the way. We're getting ready for bed, and after laying there for a few minutes relaxing, I hear breathing outside of my door. I get instant chills and feel something watching me. The only thing in my room that makes noise is my fan. It's barely even happening. And I know what that sounds like. Very creepy. Another one happened New Year's Day. I'm sleeping when I got woken up at 3:42 in the morning from an unknown caller. I let it ring, and after it passed 4, I'm able to fall back asleep. I later wake back up around 9 when I go to check my phone. I see I'm on Do Not Disturb, and I go to see who's trying to call me. It said unknown caller ID, and only went through once. If you know the D&D feature on Apple, in order for a call to go through while on D&D, you have to call twice. This caller only called once, and it somehow went through. I don't know how this happened, but I believe something wanted me awake and was trying to scare me. I'll attach proof at the end. I have more stories, but I'll save those for people who want more. Anyways, those are just some stories from my haunted home. Hope you all enjoyed reading. I have tons more stories, so feel free to reach out and I'll update with more. This happened when I was about 16 or 17 in my hometown of Dunoon, Scotland. I was walking home after seeing my girlfriend at the time. She lived near a graveyard. There's a little shortcut. It's one that I always took. There's a narrow path, and it turns right beside the graveyard with a wall that's just below my shoulder. And I'm 5'9". I'd walked that path loads of times, and usually looking at my phone or listening to tunes. Nothing weird ever happened. But this one night I suddenly got this strange feeling. Not panic or anything, just that instinct that makes you look up. So I looked to my left over the wall, and there's a face staring up at me. Just a face, not moving, not hiding, just looking straight at me from the other side of the wall. And then it was gone. It was like I blinked and it vanished. Now, I know it could have been a kid or even just a random person having a look. I'm not trying to claim it was 100% paranormal. But the face didn't look right. That's the part that stuck with me. Something about it was off, like the proportions or the expression. I find it hard to describe. I wish I could draw so I could sketch it. The way it disappeared, it didn't make sense, and I didn't hear footsteps, and I didn't see anybody duck down or anything like that. Just there 1 second and gone the next. Actually, it's the only potential paranormal experience I've had. And I've always wondered if I actually had a paranormal experience, or if my mind always played tricks on me in the dark. But anyway, thanks for listening. Plan to go back to the graveyard one day just to vibe it out, as I've moved away from town now, but I do still visit. My ghost story. Many don't believe me, and I think it was just my mind playing tricks on me. I know what I saw. I've had many paranormal experiences from growing up, but the biggest ever was those 3 months I spent in that apartment. In August 2024, my family and I moved into this old apartment complex in the old side of Rustavi, Georgia. Rustavi. So from the very start, whatever was living in that apartment made itself very clear to me, literally. On the same day we moved in, I was changing in my room, door closed, of course. Balcony door was open, and I'm sitting on the bed putting on my socks. That's when I saw the door moved a bit. I looked up on in, and for a split second I saw a reflection of a woman dressed like 1800s. The door almost closed and opened again, and it's not like it could have been wind, but like I said, my bedroom door was closed. Balcony door was broken, so needed to be lifted and moved, otherwise it couldn't even move. After that, I've seen many shadow figures staring at me from the hallway, kind of picking from behind a wall or outside the balcony. It's weird, because I felt like going close to it, like it was luring me onto the balcony. But the most annoying was knocked from inside a wardrobe. Every time I drifted to sleep, it would wake me up. I get it if it was my mind once or twice, but for days, hours on end, every day, I don't know. We eventually moved after 3 months, and so far in the apartment I live in now, the only thing that happened was my toothpaste getting thrown across the bathroom in front of me. Maybe a shampoo bottle or something getting knocked off the shelf. So what do y'all think? Was it just my mind, or something attached to me? I've had the paranormal happen in every place I've lived in. I don't believe in ghosts, but I can't explain what I saw. I've been telling this story for years now. My friend told me to post this here. I was 14 years old. I'm home alone on a Friday night. My parents were working late. My older sister was spending the night at a friend's house. It wasn't uncommon for my sister and I to either be home alone or just us two together. So neither of us were really afraid of the dark or just being alone in general. Anyways, it was around maybe 11 p.m. I decided to go to bed. Hopped into my top bunk, and I turned off the light, and when I finished getting comfortable, I noticed that I'd left the bathroom light on. Now, at this point, I just slept with the doors open. The bathroom was right across from my room. The light was super bright, and it basically lit up the whole upstairs. And this is when I went to climb down my bunk bed, and I looked over at the bathroom and I saw it. I watched as a tall, shadowy figure walked from out of the bathroom by grabbing the top of the door frame and ducking underneath it. Then it slowly turned toward my sister's room, where he again grabbed the top of the door, ducked underneath, and walked into her room. This interaction lasted maybe 10 seconds, and to this day, it's the clearest thing I've ever seen. It was so bright. And while I was tired, I can't imagine that my mind simply just made this up. I was so terrified I froze there and only thought to slowly fall back into my bed and stare through a crack between my bed and the frame into my sister's room. I was just sitting there, and I was waiting for it to come back out, and I sat there and just waited for my parents to come home. I was so scared that I was alone, and I just didn't know what to do. Finally, I heard my parents open the front door, and I just jumped off my bed to the floor and ran downstairs to tell them. They asked why I was up so late, and that's when I found out it was 1 in the morning. I just sat there, stared for at least an hour straight. I told them everything, but they just didn't believe me at all. Ended up keeping my bedroom door closed that night, and from then on. My sister followed suit the next day, after I told her the story. So, when you sum it all up, yeah, a 14-year-old kid was home alone late at night and saw something scary. Sounds like nothing, I guess. But I'll never get that image out of my mind of what it looked like. Everything in that moment was so clear, I could remember the terror going through me so fast I just couldn't move. And it's been 10 years, and I still don't believe in ghosts or the afterlife or whatever. I just cannot explain what else it could have been. I'm sure I'm not explaining everything to the fullest, so if you have any questions, I'll try my best to answer them. Ghost House. This happened when I was younger, probably 8 to 10 years old. I'd lived with my grandparents in this old cul-de-sac in rural Kentucky. It was full of extremely old colonial houses with my older sister and younger brother. The houses we lived in was a 3-story white house, and it was complete with a basement, first floor, and second. I figured out pretty early on the place was haunted because weird things would keep happening. I'd only ever have these bizarre nightmares. That being said, this is the scariest thing that's ever happened in this house. It was late one night. I was up well past my bedtime. It was summertime, so my siblings and I didn't have school, but we still had to be in bed by a certain time. Everyone in the house was sleeping, and I decided it would be the perfect time to play on the family computer, keeping the kitchen in the first floor. The layout of that kitchen had 2 doors adjacent to one another, and they were broken up by the computer in between them. The door to the left, it led to the dining area. The one to the right led to the laundry room, which had a good view of the basement stairs, actually. The laundry room did have a door separating the kitchen from it, but it never stayed closed, no matter what we did to keep it shut. We chalked it up to it being an old house, and just left it ajar most of the time. Tonight, it was no different. The door to the laundry room was open, and it was dark in all of the house, and I sat at the computer chair and powered it up like my pawpaw showed me. Started playing games. We didn't own headphones for it, so I kept the music down so it wouldn't wake anyone else. My siblings slept upstairs, and my grandparents slept on the first floor. I'm pretty engrossed in my game, and I feel something from the laundry room move closer to me in the dark. I wind up freezing. Being a child and not wanting to make eye contact with the boogeyman in the dark, as it creeps right next to my ear, it whispers my name. I shoot up, I run into the dining room, back up the stairs into my room my sister and I shared. Not looking was probably going to be a good idea for me. That memory, though, still burned into my head, and I don't think I could have handled what I saw in those dark places. Years later, we moved out of the house. Grandmother always had weird fondness for that house, though, actually. We moved, and she always talked about moving back, and she had strange blood disorders, actually. At least when she lived in that house. She'd get bruised and lose blood. Almost had to be given a blood transfusion. Doctors never could figure out what was wrong. When we moved, the weird bruises and blood loss vanished completely. House got condemned a few years ago now. Still attached to it, I think. Something was definitely in that house, though. Always gave us the creeps. Voices in My Parents' Victorian Barn House, Part 2. I posted about 6 months ago about voices in my parents' UK Victorian farmhouse. The link is below, but they've now experienced a few more odd bits. So here's the update. My parents can be chilly in the kitchen area. That's where they basically have the hub of the home, and they'll hear 2 knocks on the closed door to the hallway. They'll go to open the door, and there's no one there. 5 minutes later, the same happens. Clear as day knocks. And it is worth noting that this occurs in the original part of the 1800s house and not the 1900s, or rather 1990s extension. My parents also have various pictures on the wall. They're secured with command strips, the Velcro ones. Ah, yes. Never had any issues with these strips. However, there is this one picture that always falls off the wall, and yeah, okay, you can probably cause an argument to debunk this one, but picture's always leaning against the wall when it's found, not broken or damaged. On the floor, it'll always be leaning against the wall. It's happened more than 3 or 4 times, identically. As an aside note, we go and stay a fair bit in overnight, and, well, we're not experiencing anything on that scale, but one thing will stay with me. I'm upstairs, and I'm sorting out some of my daughter's bits while my mom's washing up and Dad was walking the dogs. Partner and daughter were playing outside, and clear as day, I hear my dad, and he's calling my mom by her name. I can't explain it, but I heard my dad call my mom by her name. I went downstairs, asked my mom where Dad, or where he was, I suppose, as I knew that he was back because he called to her. My mom was adamant that he was still out and he didn't call her. 10 minutes later, my dad walks down the driveway with both dogs, and again, it was like an original part of the 1800s house when I heard my dad's voice. And as I'm typing this, my partner tells me her experience. She's upstairs and everyone else is outside. She's walking down the stairs. She hears the kitchen tap come on at quite some speed. As she gets down the stairs and walks down the short hallway to the kitchen, it stops. No one's there. She'd always shrugged it off until we started sharing our stories of being in the house. Black figure photos. To get a better perception on this sinister yet intriguing place, I suggest you read The Curse of the Bloody Mile. Over time, I've developed an obsession due to the disturbingly dark history possessing the Bloody Mile. I've been determined to unearth its deep-buried secrets one by one. Years of research revealed hidden pockets of paranormal playground saturated in blood and littered with haunting activity. Typically, I investigate alone, but often when the sun disappears, it swiftly alters into an intimidating scenario. The hellish atmosphere lingers heavily and becomes mortally overpowering that I find myself abandoning the cold, eerie place. However, on several occasions during the warm sunlight hours, I've sighted a black figure standing in the footpath in the distance. But as always, blink and it's gone. Other times, a menacing presence lurks amongst the trees, keeping a close eye on me. The photos were taken at an old forgotten site where the original Minnamora railway station and the gates of Dunmore House once stood proudly. The railway station was purposely built for the rich Fuller family. They owned the house. The railway station operated between 1870 and 1943, to be exact. The footpath you're about to view in the below photo was once the original road. The railway line is about 20 meters from the footpath. In the distance, you'll notice a black figure standing on a small bridge or perhaps in the water. I've witnessed this particular figure before. Never got to capture it until now, and in the photo between myself and the figure is where the gates of Dunmore House on the left side and the Minnamura railway station on the right side were located. And then we have image links, which I'll try to throw up on the screen, why not? The below photo shows where the figure was standing. There's a small sign on the post beside the path. Across from it, it's a forbidding bench seat. Clicks on the link. Bench seat nonetheless. Did you notice the face on the water in the above photo? Well, check it out below. Clicks image link again. Here's the creepy seat in the photo below. It's unsettling, sitting alone in complete darkness, surrounded by unholy noises from the depths of the woods, nervously expecting a tap on the shoulder. An array of eerie activity unfolds during the feared witching hours for those who dare. However, the below photo was taken a short time later. Look at the center of the photo. There's the figure again, lurking in the trees. Sometimes it appears to be wearing a black robe or a cloak. Okay. So after a while, I continued walking along the path, but a fearful sense of being stalked was unmistakable, and I started taking photos, and here's what I captured. Zoom into the middle sign on the post. You will notice a figure standing beside the path, keeping a watchful eye on me. Question is who is this culprit behind the figure? Here's a list of unfortunate candidates who lost their lives at or near Dunmore House gates and Minnamora railway station, the same location of these photos. Here's a suicide while of unsound mind, in quotes, of 1912. Tragic death, 1922. Gruesome find, 20 feet from the gates. Fatal accident, 1932. Let's not forget found hanging in 1936. And by 1944, Minnamora railway station was abandoned and relocated about a kilometer south of there. Dunmore House gates were also relocated about 60 meters, it's still there today actually, to make room for the new road, which is still used today also. However, the new gates continued to be a death beacon and attract horrific incidents. Just north of Minnamora Bridge are the gates of Dunmore House. Woman's death, 1945. Young man killed, 1952. Then we have woman decapitated. A man returning home from holidays on the south coast with his wife, daughter, and son in the car were headed north just past the Minnamora Bridge near Dunmore House gates. His wife was driving, chatting away, and accidentally run up the back of a truck that had some log protruding over the back of it. His wife was immediately decapitated as the log came through the windscreen, leaving the horrified son in the back seat with his dead mother's head in his lap. Tragic as that was, years later his daughter died of breast cancer. In 1978, his son, perhaps haunted by that terrible accident, committed suicide by blowing himself up with explosives in a flat at Warrawong. Excuse me. The above story isn't available by Trove newspapers as of yet. However, it's a stab in the dark on who could be the culprit behind the figure, as it's not the only apparition to torment folks who sit on the bench seat. There is a shifty, transparent black blob the size of a large human torso floating around the vicinity. This cunning entity seems to drain one's energy, and in the past I've endured a series of tantalizing tingles that strangely satisfy the soul, yet they do prompt pitilessness. So over the years, certain individuals have claimed to hearing the distinct cries of a baby in the dead of night. And I doubted these disturbing claims. That was until I unearthed the sullen facts behind the alleged haunting. Perhaps they were telling the truth. During World War I in 1916, Mrs. Lambert, riding home in a horse and buggy, struck a rock or bump in the road in front of the gates of Dunmore House and was thrown unhurt. Unfortunately, the baby she was holding was tossed from her arms and struck a rock on the side of the track, killing the baby. I'm going to skip that link. But anyway, the above victims are a small part of a long list of coincidental fatalities that occurred in the Bloody Mile. Over 50 other deaths have been confirmed throughout the mysterious terrain, providing an abundance of hidden locations abounding with eerie activity. However, the journey has just begun. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of all of this is the number of deaths that continue to rise rapidly. Trove newspapers articles between the mid-1950s to the present day are not digitized as of yet, not available. What other secrets still remain buried deep within the Bloody Mile makes one wonder if the land was cursed by James Tobin. I'll leave you to dwell on that for now. Am I insane, or did this really happen? Years ago, I did a lot of research into heaven, hell, Illuminati, demons, and angels. One day, me and my ex, we were arguing, and like an idiot, I decided to stand at the top of my stairs and scream that I'm off to sell my soul. I was only young. I didn't really mean that I was angry. The argument calmed, and me and my ex was happy again. A few days later, when a friend was sat in her home on the sofa, she had no credit to send a joke text to me, so we was copying it from her phone to mine halfway through. Or copying it from her phone to mine, and halfway through we heard a massive bang, then rustling. Put the phones down, went to investigate, nothing was found. Went back to the sofa to finish the text. The text was gone. It now said, "Come worship the devil," in capital letters. Me and my friend deleted the message, looked around the house, and I went home. A few days later, I'm at my neighbor's house and having a girls' night with me and two friends. We were messing with cards. One friend stopped, looked at me, and said, "You're going to hell." My other friend jumped up in a panic, and I kicked the other friend and said, "What did you just say?" It's like she'd come back and didn't have a clue what she had just said. We took girly selfies, and then we looked at them to pick what ones we liked. Excuse me. They both was their most beautiful self on every single one. I looks odd, like a disoriented face was in front of mine. They both freaked. I rang my partner, told him to bring my Bible, and he said we said the Lord's Prayer and put a film on. The next day, I was home alone. I'm in the bath. And I'm quite clean and tidy, by the way. I heard loads off, banging, and noise. Got out of the bath. My front room was everywhere. Got back in the bath, did my bits, got out of the bath, and went to clean the mess back up. Not up to this point did I feel fear. Just more like, what the fuck is happening in my life? Am I going mad? Should I see a doctor? And do I need sectioning? Sectioning? A day or two later, I got a contract upgrade. I was sat with my partner opening it and sorting it out. I pressed the on button, started saying it was coming from me in an odd old country-style song. I passed the phone to my partner. It instantly stopped singing, and I passed it back and started singing at me, and this happened 3 times in a row with the same song style and voice. Fair to say, phone went back into the box, never to be seen again. Now I'm thinking I'm going nuts, and me and everyone around me are all nuts too. Went to bed with my partner, the lights on, and got woken up, and I'd been pulled out off the bed, and my cheek hit the floor hard. While on the floor, something was pinning me down and laughing at me. I was trying to say the Lord's Prayer, and every time I did, like my body was loosening, and I messed it up, and my body went back tight. It was then all of a sudden, in a blink of an eye, I'm off in the bedroom floor somewhere I didn't know. It was dark. The only way I could describe it, it was like foggy and misty. I couldn't see anything. But I could feel what I can only describe as a wall. I put my hand onto it. Out of the fog, a voice said, a man's voice actually, it said I could have anything I wanted and he would give me anything. I asked for God and for the good. And this is the weird part. He replied and said I was one of the smartest humans he had in front of him while sounding very amused. He said with a warning voice that you asked for God and you stick with God or I'll be back to remind you. I woke up all tucked up in bed. Sat up and instantly was thinking about that one wild, vivid dream. My body hurt and I looked at my ankle and there were slight marks. Jumped up, looked into the mirror. My cheek was bruising. Looked at my back, which was extremely sore, and it was very red but never bruised. Now I really do need sectioning. What in the world is sectioning? A few days later, dream number 2. I went to bed and I was in the middle of a war zone. I was in nowhere. I found an army man and I asked him, well, where do we go? What do we do? He explained where I should go and I had come across 2 tunnels. I had to pick a tunnel. Once I started walking down, I wasn't allowed to turn back. And that was under the condition that it was no matter what I would see. I found the tunnels, picked the tunnel, and started walking down it. Imagine if you could see all the world's evil in one place. That's exactly what this tunnel contained. Everything bad. I panicked a bit, carried on walking home. I come to a train and I climbed on. The train ride was what I can only describe as hell itself. All of a sudden the train stopped and I peeked out the window. Out this window was utter paradise. It was beautiful. I can't even explain it. This little creature, floating being thing, came and got me and took me to a house. Told me to go inside and look. I did, and the house was beautiful but unfurnished, and went up the stairs into a bedroom. A beautiful tall man was in the bedroom. I walked over to him and he hugged me and told me it was over now. I'll be okay. Woke up, tucked up in bed. A few days later, Jehovah's Witness man, he knocks on my door and my ex answers it. Said, sorry, I have the wrong house. I'm looking for a pregnant girl anyways. I was walking to the door to be nosy and I noticed the Bible in the papers. Asked if I could speak to him. He sent an amazing lady to me that helped me learn about the good, the bad, and the in-between. But what was scary was she was amazed by the fact that I could work a Bible and find things instantly, and the thing I already knew about the Bible I didn't even think I knew myself. 3 years later, after monthly studies, I decided all religions are man-made, and that if we want to believe in God, we can. He's all around us, every day, in our food, in our wood, in our plaster boards, and, well, today's religion is twisted and man-made and actually controlling and evil. Now the freaky part. If I don't speak to him weekly and talk about him, God, the good weekly, and put him to the back of my brain, strange, ghostly things happen. And this is now 12 years later, and it still happens. I say sorry, speak to God, and talk about God, and my life settles. The question is, even though I have a few witness to a certain percentage of the stories, but am I insane? Did this even happen? Do I need sectioning? Is it all real, and what happened to me if it was real? Has anybody got any similar experiences? Sorry about my grammar and spelling. I'm dyslexic and tried hard to write this. If people want to know more, well, please ask the story, or I guess me in this instance. Well, that's actually a little bit interesting. My grandmother saw something strange at 3 a.m. in our village. This happened to my grandmother back in the 1970s. She lived in the same village I've mentioned in my other stories. A village with small forests, big trees, and many temples, and a lot of local beliefs. The place always had a strange atmosphere, though, and At that time, there was no water connection in houses. Everybody used a public pipeline to collect water, and water wasn't available all the time. My grandmother often went to collect water, maybe around 3 a.m. It's because fewer people were there and the water came faster. Sometimes she went alone. One night after filling her pot, she was walking back home. A little far away, she saw a boy around 7 years old sitting in the sit-out near one of the nearby houses. She could see him clearly, but his chin was down. Something about him felt strange. She walked faster toward her home, carrying the 2 pots, feeling confused. She'd never seen this boy before, and in our village, everybody knows each other well. Her confusion grew when she remembered that the family who lived in that house was away on a pilgrimage for a week, so who was that boy? The next day, she asked the neighbors. Nobody knew. After the family returned from their pilgrimage, she told them the story, and they said, "No way." According to my grandmother, she was 100% sure that she saw the boy. Glasserücken Experiencer, however that might sound, with umlauts and in German. Good day, or rather good evening. I had an experience that I'll never forget so quickly. It started relatively early for me, that I was interested in the whole underworld thing. 13 and 14 years old, I played the first time Glasserücken. Well, what can I say? Nothing moved. The next few weeks it got weirder and weirder. And you have to know, we lived in a duplex apartment back then. The living room was below my then child's room. Whenever my family and I watched something downstairs, you could hear exactly how someone was walking and running around in my room. One night I woke up out of nowhere and around 2 or 3, and I had to look at my door out of a reflex, and I was able to watch the door open by itself. And if that wasn't enough, one night you could hear how the leash of my deceased dog at the time took the stairs on its own. My mother just asked me why the leash was in the front of my door. If I had known what I would have triggered with it back then, well, I would have never done it. That's what they all say. Growing up ghosty. I'd like to say I've always been able to see past the veil, ever since I was a little girl. I'm not sure if something follows me, or if I just have this thing, or maybe I'm open to the other side reaching out. I think my earliest paranormal memory was a series of late-night encounters, as well as staying with my grandparents. Couldn't have been more than 7 or 8, and I remember waking up every night for a week straight, around the same time, maybe at like 1 or 2 a.m. I'd see the silhouette of a man with a hat be standing right outside the bedroom window. There were no trees or tall shrubs anywhere in the yard, much less by the window. Nothing that could possibly make that shape. He never moved, but I'd lay awake and watch him until I fell back asleep. I remember being scared initially, but something was almost soothing about him standing there. Then we moved into my quote-unquote other grandparents' house. After my grandpa died, that's circa the 8th grade. I'd always felt uneasy in that house, though, especially in the bedroom down a long, dark hallway. Ended up taking that room as mine, and on night 1, I'm sitting in the bed, feet under the covers, doing homework. Lights were on and everything, and out of nowhere, what feels like a hand grabs and yanks my ankle. I jump, I rip the covers off, I can't see anything, and part of me thinks it was my grandpa playing a joke on me. That was something he would have done in my life. In that house, it was normal to have small objects flying across the room, footsteps when no one was around, and pennies that fell out of the ceiling vents. I'm still shaken by watching small impressions appear on the bed next to me while I'm reading one night. Looked almost like a cat was walking across the bed, making small indents on the cover as it went, too. There was also a night I felt something jump up onto the bed by my head. I still think that was the ghost cat as well. I'm 27 now, still finding myself in houses with unexplainable phenomena. Shadow man, invisible energy that my dogs watch, laughter from a woman I can't see, dreams of meeting family members who passed on and receiving messages from them. For those that have also been experiencing the paranormal most of their life, you ever scared? Or has it become something familiar? And something can always be scarily familiar. My family didn't believe me, and now they're starting to. I grew up in a neighborhood that was built on old farmland. It's where a child supposedly died years before the houses were built there. I always felt uncomfortable in my room as a kid, and I hated sleeping in there. One night, I was around maybe 9 or 10, and I woke up while sleeping on my parents' floor. I saw what looked like a little girl laying behind my mom, almost spooning her. They were holding a doll, and they were staring straight at me. I screamed and woke my mom up, and when she turned around, no one was there. I never saw anything like that again. For years, I assumed maybe it was just my imagination. What I can't explain are the things that happened after that. As I got older, objects around me would disappear for months and then reappear perfectly placed in my room. Electronics would turn on by themselves. It was always small things. No one else in my family experienced it, so they didn't wind up believing me. Recently, though, other people have started noticing things too. About 6 months ago, I went home and the bathroom connected to my room was locked, even though nobody had been in there. I unlocked it, walked away for a minute, came back, and it was locked again. A couple of months later, my boyfriend and we tried to leave through the garage, and the door handle wouldn't open at all. We both tried for several minutes, and suddenly it opened like nothing was wrong. Same thing happened again later with my dad. My mom has also been sending me videos of lights flickering in that house. And then tonight, something happened that really freaked her out. Got into her car, and when she buckled her seatbelt, she said it felt like somebody behind her grabbed it and pulled. She turned around and no one was there. Go figure. For years, I thought this was just coincidences around me, but now multiple people are experiencing things. Has anybody had activity seem to follow a person instead of staying at one location? And can things escalate over time? Oh boy, yeah, things can escalate over time. I'll tell you that one. My encounter with the three-dimensional spirit. When I was 21 years old, this being back in the early 80s, staying at a hotel whilst working in this particular West Country city in the UK, it's away from my hometown. One particular morning around 7:30, I woke up to see an elderly man sitting upright in a chair next to my bed in my room, just watching me, looking at me with his arms folded and with what I could describe as a strange, quizzical-like expression on his face. He looked to me in his late 70s, appeared to be wearing what looked like an old naval officer's uniform, possibly from the First World War era. I was terrified. I shut my eyes for a couple of minutes and hid underneath the sheets. When I opened them, he was gone. I've always believed to this day I saw a spirit that morning. It's now over 45 years ago, but I still see clearly his face and that unsettling expression looking at me, as if it was only happened this morning. As if it had only happened this morning. This was a bit rushed because I saw I was allowed to post again, so I rushed over to just throw something together to exist again. Thanks for tuning in. I really appreciate it. Sweet dreams. See ya.